Well, that's it, everybody. The Philadelphia Phillies season is over. They lose the World Series in six to the Houston Astros, but what a run it was. We're going to break it all down, including the decisions in the final game of the World Series on today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is indeed Locked On Phillies. I am your host, Connor Thomas. You've been hearing me all year on here if you're just checking in. Appreciate it, but what you missed was a heck of a ride here on Locked On Phillies. I've been talking about it with you the whole way. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And before we get into it, I want to thank you for being with us throughout the season, listening to Locked On Phillies, watching the show on YouTube, tweeting, commenting, subscribing, following along. All of it made it that much more special and that much more fun for this team and all of us subsequently to go on this magical run. Now, we're going to start with Game 6, and we're going to discuss that a little bit. And then the rest of the episode will be a little bit of just the how we should feel about the run, in my personal opinion. You can feel however you'd like. If you want to be devastated, feel free, because I was sure there Saturday night. We'll discuss more of that. But Game 6, the decision of whether or not to take out Zack Wheeler is where the conversation begins and ends with Game 6. I understand there was a lot more to it. I understand there are more opportunities. Kyle Schwarber, another big home run. He was huge for this team. They're in a really good spot having him locked down for years to come. But when you pull Zack Wheeler after 70 pitches, and I tweeted this out, and I've had a couple days to think about it, and I don't feel like I was incorrect or hasty to say it. Rob Thomson cost his team a chance at that game, going with Jose Alvarado to face Yordan Alvarez, with Zack Wheeler coming out of the game with just 70 pitches. Zack Wheeler's velocity was still up. Zack Wheeler's stuff looked really good. The explanation that Rob Thomson gave post-game was that he thought it was a better matchup with Alvarado and needed a strikeout and thought Jose was the guy to do that. Well, yeah, last year in baseball, not this year, but last year, Zack Wheeler was the best strikeout guy in Major League Baseball. He was incredible. He was absolutely unbelievable. So, yeah, I think he could strike him out. The velocity was there. He was pumping 98, 99 basically the whole night. He dipped down to like 97 when they pulled him out, but still, you can get guys out with 97-mile-an-hour fastballs, and his stuff was as good as I've seen it at any point this year. Zack Wheeler said after the game that he was caught off guard by Rob Thomson coming out to take him out in that spot, and he hadn't even been hit hard to that point. Just some ground balls that were well placed, maybe somewhat squared up, but not like really, really hard contact. And it's one of those situations where sometimes the manager just overthinks it. If it's me, what I'm doing is I'm losing with my best arm. This year, your best arm was Zack Wheeler. I know Jose Alvarado has been incredible out of the pen. And frankly, I don't even look at Jose Alvarado as a guy that I can blame for the loss, because he was put into such a difficult position to come in with runners on first and third, facing one of the best hitters in baseball this year, who's, by the way, better statistically against lefties than he is against righties. So I don't understand where the analytics say that Alvarado is a good play there. Here's the other thing, right? You gave Zack Wheeler an extra day of rest. Zack Wheeler could have thrown Game 5, or an extra 2 days, really. Zack Wheeler could have thrown Game 5 at home and given you an opportunity to win that game, in a game that ended up being 3-2 that Zack Wheeler could have had a huge impact on. They could have won that game with Zack Wheeler starting, but you gave him the extra rest to try and get the most out of him as possible. And then you pull him after 70 pitches? For what? What are you saving him for? What are you protecting him from? To pull him at 70 pitches, if you really don't think that Zack Wheeler is your best option in that spot, I don't know what Zack Wheeler you've been watching. I don't understand going to the pen as early as they did, and it bit them on the Alvarez home run, the 3-run homer that basically iced the game. Once it was 4-1 off of Bregman's hit, that I said with the people I was watching with, I said, this is the most over 4-1 baseball game I've ever seen. Like, that game was done. It was dead. It was dead when Alvarez hit the home run. But I can't comprehend the thought process behind saving Zack Wheeler, giving him the extra days of rest, and then pulling him after 70 pitches when he clearly has good stuff and he hasn't been hit hard. It was a mistake by Rob Thomson. That mistake is going to haunt me for a long time. I'm going to think about that a lot over the offseason, over next season when pitching changes get made. Now, here's what I don't think is the case. Does it mean I can never trust Rob Thomson again? No, it doesn't mean that. He made a lot of really good decisions on this run. Rob Thomson is a good manager. The one decision he made in Game 6 of the World Series, while it's the biggest decision of the year and overshadows everything else he's done, it doesn't undo all of the great decisions he made to get them there. Now, there's another thing that needs to be discussed outside of the decision to bring in Alvarado for Zack Wheeler after only 70 pitches, which I think was clearly the wrong choice, regardless of result. And you can check the receipts. I tweeted it out as soon as the decision was made. This is a bad idea. So this is not revisionist. This is not because Alvarado gave up the home run. No, that was a bad decision by Rob Thomson. And another one that I think wasn't necessarily like a bad decision, but more of like slight negligence, a lack of a move rather than a bad move, was continuing to allow Nick Castellanos to hit behind Bryce Harper. Harper had been incredible in early series, but the Astros did a good job of working around him and not letting him beat them. Still had a solid series, but not what he was in the CS or DS or wild card series because Nick Castellanos put together non-competitive at bat after non-competitive at bat. He had a rough year. I'm not trying to pile on Nick Castellanos because I think he is a really good baseball player and he's an important part of this piece of this puzzle moving forward. But he wasn't good in the World Series. He wasn't good in the championship series. He had a rough time this year and in these playoffs, and it allowed the Astros an easy way to avoid facing Bryce Harper. You got to change the lineup at some point to protect him more, whether that's moving Castellanos down in favor of someone like Segura or Alec Boehm, whether it's moving Castellanos up and moving one of your better hitters down just to make the lineup around Bryce Harper stronger. Whatever it is, the leaving the lineup alone in that situation just didn't feel right to me as well. And the one other thing I'll say about Game 6, in a game that there's really only one big storyline, which was the Wheeler-Alvarado decision. The Astros, and leaning into pitches, just... We all saw it. We all saw the replay. I understand that you can't overturn, like Major League Baseball's rules, you cannot overturn a hit by pitch, whether or not the player leaned over the plate. You cannot overturn that. But you should be able to. And it might have been a dumb place to use the challenge, but it's bad umpiring. It's bad baseball. It's bad for the product. It's bad for the World Series. It's frankly cheap Bush League baseball from the Houston Astros to be looking to lean in to get hit. And no, I heard the comparison. Oh, Chase Utley did that all the time. Other players don't get out of the way of stuff. Stop it. Stop it. Come on. You clearly see the elbow go in. He pulls it in so that it takes more of the plate, even though you're turning back. And it's a hitter's secret. Hitters do this at all levels. You see it at the D3 college level. You see it at the high school level. You see it pros, minors, D1, wherever, T-ball. Okay, they don't pitch in T-ball. But if they did, you'd see it there too. It's an old trick where, watch my elbow here. When I look like I'm leaning back, I'm actually going in more to the zone. I look like I'm trying to avoid it, but just you're sticking that elbow pad out there. I don't think players shouldn't be able to wear like elbow pads and shin pads and whatever because injuries are not good for the sport. When superstars get hurt by getting hit by a pitch, it's not good. We saw that with Bryce Harper earlier this season. But, man, Just the wrong call there in a big spot to set up that inning. It sucks, but the Astros were the better team. And the Phillies season is now over. But for the rest of the episode coming up, we're going to go ahead and take some time to remember the run. And we're going to do that over the next couple of days, and we'll head into the offseason. A lot of big programming planned for you here on Locked On Phillies, a lot of good stuff. But it starts with looking back and giving this team the flowers they deserve. We'll discuss that coming up next on the next segment of Locked On Phillies. All right, I want to tell you about my friends over at Bet Online. BetOnline.net, they're your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, analysis, all that good stuff. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We got it all at betonline.net. And listen to this, if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn even more. BetOnline is where the game starts. I want to thank BetOnline for being with us all season long. Made some good money on the Phillies over. Made some good money during the playoff run. Appreciate the folks over at BetOnline. Of course, it's where the game starts. It's your number one most trusted source for all of the sports betting information. Go ahead and check them out if you haven't already. Okay, let's talk about the run. And where do we even start? It was, first of all, it was magical. You got within 2 games of winning the World Series. To think of where you were at when Joe Girardi was fired, at the All-Star break, even at the time of clinching the playoffs in Houston, in that same stadium where the Phillies season ended, it didn't feel remotely possible. Thought, okay, well, they're the 3rd wild card seed, a position that doesn't even exist a year ago. Brand new. They barely got in. Got in by the creation of a new spot. It's like, okay, well, how deep can they really go? And then you're like, well, you look at it, hey, you're lining up against a rather weak division winner in the St. Louis Cardinals. That division stunk. The Brewers basically gave it away, and then they gave the wild card spot away to the Philadelphia Phillies by making some non-competitive moves down the stretch and choking to the Miami Marlins. We've been there. But it didn't feel like the merits of this Phillies team were playoff series winning. Didn't feel consistent enough. They felt like, to me, I always, and if you've listened to me talk throughout the year, I've always said they've had the talent. Listen to the names in the lineup: Schwarber, Hoskins, Romuto, Harper, Castellanos, Bohm, Segura. Like, those are names of winning baseball players. Competitive, talented, some levels MVP caliber, a lot of levels all-star caliber players. It sounded like a team that would work. And then you look at the pitching, and you have Nolan, you have Wheeler, and you're like, okay, there's something here, but they just didn't really put it together. But I've also said it all year long. I don't care if this team struggles in June. I don't care if they struggle in July. I don't care if they struggle in August. And I don't care if they're hot in June, July, or August. We're going to celebrate when they're hot. It's going to suck when they struggle. But ultimately, the benefit of a team that's able to make it in is who is the hottest team in October, and, well, in this postseason's case, because of the lockout and everything going on there, November. The Phillies turned into the hottest team in baseball. Yes, hotter even than the Houston Astros, who were simply just a dominant team rolling along doing their own thing. No, the Phillies were hotter up into the World Series than the Houston Astros. Make no mistake about it. You don't get that very often. I know a lot of people look at this as just the beginning of the run. And you are not wrong. This is the beginning of a really nice championship window for the Philadelphia Phillies. Bryce Harper, clearly still in his prime. Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber locked down for a long time. Another year of Rhys Hoskins if the team decides that they don't want to try and move his contract before he becomes a free agent in 2024. I guess end of 2023 season. So it'll be like November of 2023. He will be the free agent. JT Realmuto locked down. Zack Wheeler locked down. Aaron Nola got more time. Opportunity to go out and over the next couple days, the next couple weeks, and next couple months, we're going to discuss some additions and everything like that. Already got some big plans for the Philadelphia Phillies offseason, but you look at it and this core is ready. And Dave Dombrowski will continue to go all in. Like, look at the daycare. Bryson Stott, huge experience this year. Brandon Marsh looks like he could be a 280 to 300 hitter at some point. Matt Vierling, a great option as a backup in the outfield. Some of the young players have really turned into something special. Ranger Suarez is a guy that now we know can pitch at the biggest level. Zack Wheeler proved playoff success. Aaron Nola struggled in the playoffs in his final 3 starts. That experience, though, invaluable. I don't think you should trust Aaron Nola right now, but it doesn't matter whether or not we trust him. It matters if he trusts himself. I think he did enough this year that he can build on that for next year and at least have some semblance of confidence prior to the playoffs, and we'll see. I mean, look at what Justin Verlander was prior to that final start that he made against the Philadelphia Phillies. He had been terrible in the World Series. He's bad in the playoffs. He's one of the great pitchers of all time. Some guys just struggle on that stage, but it doesn't make them a bad pitcher overall. And maybe that's what Aaron Nola is, but not a bad pitcher overall, a guy who struggles on that stage. Still, I'd have Justin Verlander on my team tomorrow, and I will gladly take Aaron Nola again this coming year. Alec Boehm, a young player who showed a tremendous growth this year. Like, there's a lot of stuff going right for this organization. And Dave Dombrowski is a president of baseball operations, not technically a general manager. That's Sam Fold, but he's a guy that knows how to put a winning product on the field and knows how to take a winning team to a championship team. I firmly believe in his ability to do this. And on top of all that, the farm system is looking up. And looking at the magical run, like, there were stretches where you see what this team could be. The playoffs for sure. But we also saw it in June with the Kyle Schwarber hot streak and how good the team was then. We saw it in points in July. We saw this team, when they're going good, they were the best team in baseball. And yes, that includes the Houston Astros that beat them. I firmly believe that the Phillies' ceiling cleared just about every team, maybe besides the New York Yankees. And the Yankees' issue was they weren't simply consistent enough and they didn't come up clutch in October. But that team, when they were going good, was unbeatable. The issue is they didn't go good for that long. The Mets were up there. The Braves were up there. And the Phillies happened to be the hot team in October. But I do think, even all things equal, hot stretches, with how talented this team was and the pitchers they had, there's an argument to be made that they were, at the hottest point, the best team in baseball. Obviously, they don't end up being the best team in baseball because the Astros lift the trophy and win the World Series and all of that. But there's something here. You're going to have to figure out what you do with some additions and subtractions. Gene Segura, no longer under contract. You're going to have to decide if you want to re-sign him. Rhys Hoskins, final year of a deal. Probably not going to be here after 2023 because he's a Boris guy who's going to get the bag from somebody. Can you pay him? Would it be smart to pay him? Is it smart to move him before that contract is up and you lose him for nothing at the end of this next season? What do you do with the back end of the rotation? Like, you've got Suarez, Nola, Wheeler. Who's 4 and 5? Is it Andrew Painter? Is it Griff McGarry? Is it a Zach Eflin re-signing? Zach Eflin no longer under contract, and he opted out of his option today. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you do there, and we have plenty of time to discuss it. I have thoughts, of course, not enough to fit into this one podcast in a reflective manner, but it was just, it was a magical run. Also, one other thing that I want to talk about too, and we're going to take a short break here in a second, just a quick little blip so I can give you another sponsor, but just, if you were in Philadelphia, or even if you watched on TV, if you went to the games, if you just walked around the city, if you're just in the area, you didn't have to be in Center City. You could have just flipped on a game on TV from wherever you are. Playoff baseball back in Philadelphia was a beautiful thing. This really was the toughest place to play on planet Earth. Their home field advantage was incredible. Citizens Bank Park was as loud as any stadium I've ever heard. The place was packed. It was Red October again. It turned into Red November again. Not that we've had Red November before. The first ever Red November. It was awe-inspiring what this fan base did to get behind this team, especially with such short notice, with a team we didn't expect this from that wasn't a 100-game winner. They won 87 games. There are multiple 100-winning teams. The Astros won 100 games. The Yankees won 100 games. The Dodgers, the Braves, the Mets. 5 teams in baseball won 100 games, and yet an 87-win team was 2 wins away from winning the World Series. It's pretty special. And the way that this fan base embraced them, it's the best fans in the world. Be proud of yourself for that. there's one more thing that I need to give credit to, and we'll give credit to a lot of these guys. We're going to do player reviews, future reviews for players. Like we'll look at what's going to happen with Rhys Hoskins. We'll look at what's going to happen with Gene Segura, Zach Eflin, guys like that. So we'll discuss and we'll go do and break down that as we go through our offseason content, because now we got all the time in the world to talk and opine about what 2023 will be like. But there's one more thing we have to look back on for the 2022 Phillies. And we'll discuss it coming up next as we wrap up this episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, I want to thank you one more time for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. I want you to make your second listen when I'm done with this episode, Locked On Sports Today. It's the latest breaking news on sports in general. Big stuff. No more of our stuff, unfortunately, because the World Series is over. We are no longer the big news of the sports world here on Locked On Phillies. But, hey, it was fun to be for the while that we were. But plenty of great stuff. Basketball's in full swing. The Eagles are still undefeated. So, Philadelphia sports, hey, we still got an undefeated football team right now, the best team in the NFL. Hockey's going on, NHL, Flyer stuff, a lot of good things going on. So keep an eye on Locked On Sports Today. It's available on YouTube, Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the good work over there that those folks do. I know I critiqued him earlier. I know I said his decision cost the team a chance to win a World Series game and maybe even a World Series title. But Rob Thomson deserves maybe more credit than anybody else. Bryce Harper was the best player on the planet for most of this postseason. He deserves a lot of credit as well. We will continue to give him his roses as we go through this offseason and talk about how this team builds around him for the future. But, man, for Rob Thomson to do what he did, the single greatest in Major League Baseball history interim manager run. Nothing close. He took over a team that was below 500, and not only did he win a playoff series, he won 3 playoff series and came within 2 games of winning the World Series. It was incredible. He deserves so much credit. For my money, deserves to be manager of the year. I don't know if he'll get it for the National League. A couple other managers are deserving. You could go ahead and give it to Brian Snitker down there in Atlanta, chasing down the Braves in the NL East, or chasing down the Mets in the NL East, rather. You could give it to Dave Roberts out in Los Angeles. Dodgers, another impressive year out there, even though it didn't work out. I don't know. I don't know who you give it to, but for me, if it was my vote, and I'm biased very clearly, but Rob Thomson would be the National League Manager of the Year. I think he fully deserves that. To have him for the next 2 years, despite the decision he made taking Wheeler out, makes me comfortable with the floor of this team. Now, some of the decisions he made down the stretch, yeah, right now I'm a little worried about the ceiling. Can he make those biggest decisions in the biggest spots? Because I started questioning some in the championship series, in the World Series. But here's what I know. This team loves to play for him. He does the little things right. His work ethic is unmatched. He's a relatable guy, a kind guy, a guy that players love to play for clearly, and a guy that has built a good culture in a short time with this team. He's a World Series appearance in his first couple months as manager of this team. I don't know where the ceiling is, but I know the floor is high. I know this team is going to be competitive under him. I know they're not going to quit under him, and I know they love playing for him. And the job that Rob Thomson did cannot be understated. Frankly, to me, it's more important than anything Zack Wheeler, or Bryce Harper, or JT Realmuto, or Kyle Schwarber, or any of these guys did all year. Because he is the catalyst that holds these guys together. And for the next couple of years, and hopefully even longer, if he has a good couple of years and gets an extension, the Philadelphia Phillies are in really, really good managerial hands. So, credit to Topper. Even though I disagree with the last decision you made, wouldn't be here without an incredible managing job. Maybe the best we've ever seen at the Major League level. So, credit to him. And credit to the Philadelphia Phillies for a magical run. We'll continue to talk about it over these next couple of days, and we'll pop in back with memories throughout the offseason and all of that good stuff, because we'll have plenty of time. We got 3 months till pitchers and catchers report. But for the first episode after it's over, just a thank you to the Philadelphia Phillies and to you, the fan out there who followed along the way. And we'll continue to, because it's just the beginning for a very bright future for an organization like the Philadelphia Phillies with one of the best fan bases in the world. Thanks as always for checking in with us on Locked On Phillies, and I will talk to you on our next episode tomorrow.